Pleased to be with you again. Today I want to talk about anchoring higher frequencies, and I'd like to know if you've ever had a moment, a powerful inner knowing or a spiritual download or some kind of magical transdimensional situation where afterwards you felt like disconnected or discombobulated or maybe overstimulated. I think it's more common than what people talk about, and often in spiritual work things like that can be beautiful, but without enough grounding or decent transition afterwards can often leave you open and destabilized. People often try to chase that high of awakening moments like that, but they haven't yet built the capacity to hold it. And it's a little like trying to download a massive file onto a system that isn't prepared to receive it or hold it. And if your connection is weak or flickering, the whole thing begins to freeze. So today I'd like to explore with you why that happens and how to anchor higher frequency perception without losing your footing, so to speak. We'll look at this vertical axis and the role of the nervous system, the idea of the Egyptian concept of Ka and the yogic central channel, and grounding after expanded states and how they are essential. A lot of people imagine spiritual growth as a kind of upward ascending movement, a reaching, a rising, or a breaking through the clouds. And in some ways that's true, but I often think that real integration is not only about the ascent, but it's also about bringing it down. It's also about your capacity. So when a person enters a meditative state, or breath-based state or an expanded state of awareness, the nervous system has to process that shift. If the body's already strained, scattered or unbalanced or overloaded in some way, it may not be able to hold the experience cleanly. And that's when people can feel overwhelmed or foggy, anxious or emotionally spaced out afterwards. This understanding of not coming back down to land properly is kind of integrated in many systems such as yoga or people that teach breath and coherence work. And it's essential to find that place of coming down to land after some kind of reaching or rising or expansion of consciousness, a place of coming into integration. And that is often seen as part of the work in a lot of these older traditions. So we find that that's not really a new idea at all. In ancient Egyptian thought, it was understood that Ka is a vital aspect of a person's life force, something that animated and sustained a living being. That tells us that the relationship between consciousness and embodiment was already being explored and understood thousands of years ago. So the question is not whether insight is valuable, the question is whether the system is ready to receive it. We all know and we all strive for being our best selves and being able to intuit things for ourselves. But again, it's about that vertical axis and bringing it down into the physical world and our physical understanding in a way that our mind and body, our physical vehicle, can use it and be functional in daily life. I mentioned this vertical axis, and one way to understand grounding after these kinds of practices is through the idea of the vertical axis. This is the inner line of alignment that runs through the center of the body from the crown to the root chakra or all the way down to the feet. In yoga traditions and many traditions, it appears that the central channel, often described as Sushumna Nadi in yoga, is the pathway through which awareness and life force or prana are refined and stabilized and brought into balance or coherence. I use the term vertical axis because I think it describes practically something that you can experience when you're doing breath and awareness practices that keeps the energy centered. Instead of remaining stuck in your head, where thoughts can become overstimulated and fragmenting you and your energy field, this experience then begins to move through the whole body and utilize the whole of you. This movement creates stability. This is where yoga and other energetic models become especially useful. This central channel is not just an abstract concept, it reflects a lived principle where the spine, the main energy channel, and attention are aligned. Consciousness becomes easier to hold on to. The Monroe Institute actually emphasizes the importance of grounding after expanded states. Their work points to a very similar truth. The goal is not just to open your consciousness, but to return it to this embodied and functional way. And so this makes the idea of the vertical axis more than a spiritual image. It becomes a structure for integration. The process of anchoring higher frequencies is not about forcing an experience. It's about supporting the body so that it can receive and hold what is already present. This usually involves four elements, I would say. First is the vertical alignment, where the body becomes more centered, more symmetrical, more coherent, and less collapsed. Second, a downward attention, where your awareness shifts out of your head and into your body, especially the lower centers. And third, the earth connection, where the person is feeling supported by the physical world rather than separate from it. And lastly, a clear internal instruction where the system can respond well to simple guidance, such as I'm anchoring into my body, or I'm allowing this energy to settle into my body. When these elements come together, the experience can become more holistic, less chaotic, and more useful. And this is where perhaps the language of Ka or Sushumna or the central channel or the nervous system regulation, they all meet. And the aim is simply not about just the sensation, but it's about creating that stable field in which sensation, insight, and body and embodiment can coexist. I've had many experiences in meditation over the years, especially where I've been working with energy moving up and down my spine, whether they be yogic practices or tantra practices, tantra meditation practices, and also in the beginning of when I started to when I began to attune to tap the field of consciousness that I mirror and allow to speak through me. There were many times in both those and in meditation practices where I felt sometimes nausea, especially when I felt movement of energy up and down my spine. Now, a lot of those earlier experiences were in fact Kundalini experiences, although I may not have realized that at the time. And quite often it needed some time to stabilize and integrate straight after. And in the beginning, I didn't realize I needed to do that. And I just remained feeling a little bit unwell, but just sat with it. There are other times where I've just finished a practice and I've had to rush straight out to the supermarket, get in the car and be in traffic, and then be in a busy supermarket with those horrible lights. And I've just felt really not well, very kind of out of my body, and just really seeking to be back alone and in the quiet. So these kinds of moments of transition need to be handled with real care and real time to just gradually integrate back or come down into that landing space that we're talking about. So consciousness is not something just to access, but something to anchor. And without that, even a profound experience can remain unfinished. One of the biggest shifts in spiritual development happens when a person stops chasing those peak experiences and begins to value the integration. A lot of time I see people do plant medicine retreats, and they don't have that time for integration. They have that massive heart expansion and the sense of contact with something larger than the individual self, but they haven't been given that chance to integrate properly. Are you able to function after an insight or a download, a spiritual download? Can you remain steady after that opening? And can you translate your experience into your relationships and into your work and your daily choices? These are the real markers of maturation. And a grounded person is not someone who feels less. It is someone who can feel deeply without losing the coherence in their life, in the immediate experience or afterwards. And it's not fragmenting. They can receive more without fragmenting their sense of self. This is where the Monroe-style emphasis on structured consciousness becomes especially relevant. Expansion is only truly useful when it can be returned to ordinary life in a stable way. Otherwise, it remains an event rather than a transformation. The same is true in yoga, where the central channel is not just about rising into higher states, but about refining the channel and refining that awareness so it can be held with steadiness. They even have that phrase in yoga when you do yoga postures, sthira sukham asanam. I haven't said that quite in a nice Sanskrit-y way, but that means working with a steady ease. So always embodying that pose, sthira sukham asanam. That is why grounding matters so much in spiritual growth. It is what turns our inspiration into embodiment. It's what makes the things that we really want in life manifest into physicality. And spiritual awakening shouldn't feel like a system crash. When people are feeling overwhelmed by an experience of expansion, the answer is usually not to close down. It's usually to build more and more capacity. And so that's what grounding does. That's what embodiment does. And that's what focusing or being aware of this vertical axis, whichever term you want to use for it. When your system is steady, insight becomes clearer, and when your body is grounded, intuition takes hold. It becomes more usable and practical for you. And when your awareness is anchored into your daily life, your life can actually change. The Egyptian concept of Ka, the yogic central channel, Sushumna, the Monroe-style emphasis on post-expansion grounding, and any other modern-day idea about coherence, all the language points towards the same insight. Consciousness needs a vessel. So if you're drawn to deeper states of awareness, remember this: don't just reach for the light out there, learn how to hold it. I'm Gail Thomas, and I'll see you in our next chat. Thank you very much.